So what I'm trying to do first is just get a feel for everyone. How many people here are like IT, like ops people, responsible for rolling out or managing a piece of software? Okay. Developers? Okay. CTO, CIO, sort of. Okay. So we sort of got both sides. Sort of got both sides of the fence there. So that's good.
There's no fence.
How many people are really comfortable with cloud technologies? Would you say? Virtualization. Virtualization is pretty good. How many people are like VMware people?
Sorry, like?
Well, I mean, you know, in your shop you run VMware or something like that. Or, yeah. Okay. How many people are running the cloud internally? Okay. Well, I know you guys. You're using OpenStack?
OpenStack and Proxmox.
Oh, okay, cool. Who are you with?
I have my own consulting.
Oh, awesome. Right on.
I just help lots of small businesses.
Cool. Good.
He's the first guy to ever introduce me to VM, so he gets credit for that dangerous road.
So, basically what OpenStack is it's easy to think of it like the Linux kernel. It's just a bunch of software for managing a bunch of resources. OpenStack takes a little bit different turn though than the Linux kernel. Really what it is, it takes a bunch of single user applications and makes them multi-tenant. So multi-tenant, what that is like an apartment building, right? You've got customer A living in one apartment, customer B living in another apartment, and the two can never see each other. All right, so you can share your resources. So multi-tenancy is a big issue. It lets you take an expensive piece of hardware and carve it up and let other people use it and share those resources. So it's flexible that way. That's the way it started off. I was looking at my first commit in OpenStack, and it was November 2010. So that was, in those days, it was all about compute. It was all about taking a CPU, taking memory, and partitioning it up so everyone could have access to it. That's changed quite a bit now. OpenStack is a lot bigger. It's a lot more robust ecosystem. So you've got load balancing, you've got databases, you've got monitoring, you've got disk management, you've got object storage, there's the whole suite. Basically what they're trying to do is take everything that Amazon has and make that open source. Because Amazon is a 1,000-pound gorilla, right? They're the dominant force in this whole space. And rightfully so, they do a great job, but it's all private, it's proprietary. You can't run an Amazon cloud in your basement. Right? With OpenStack, you can take it and run a cloud yourself, and that's really what the value of it is. As a developer, I love the idea of just being able to take some code, run it locally, make sure all my scaling scripts and my Ansible scripts and everything run, and everything can scale accordingly. And then when things get busy, I should be able to push that up to a private cloud or a public cloud and move those resources out there. In the early days, we were really focused on virtualization, on hypervisors. That's changed now. So now we work on bare metal. So you can apply that multi-tenancy aspect of it to bare metal. You can apply it to Docker stuff. You can apply it to traditional hypervisors like KVM or Zen or whatnot. So the ecosystem has grown quite a bit, and the community has grown quite a bit. There's thousands and thousands of developers that contribute to this stuff every day from every major company you can think of in the IT space, whether it's Red Hat, Canonical, Dell, Intel, Cisco, Microsoft. Everyone contributes to OpenStack. Probably with the exception of a couple, but even EMC. They're all in there, so they all play with it because it's open source. It's just a force you have to reckon with. But it's not an easy thing to do. It's like having the Linux kernel, right? You don't just take it, compile it, and off you go and have a distribution. That's the reason you have distributions. It's because people package it up and they put the important stuff in with it. If you download OpenStack, you're going to be in for a rude awakening because it's a lot of loose pieces, and these guys can attest to it. So it takes a lot of glue and putting stuff together and finding out how this stuff fits and works and breaks. So that's why now you sort of see a rise of the consulting groups, the private clouds, the people that can come in and set you up with a cloud and get you going. Of course, there's pros and cons to that. You've got someone you've got to pay for and manage it. which can be good, because that's something you don't have to deal with. The other side of it, though, is you won't have the skills in-house. So it's a trade-off. I mean, as a CTO or CIO, that's a sort of business decision you have to make. Where do I want to spend my resources? Same thing with buying hardware. Do I actually want to buy hardware? Do I just want to use the public cloud? And then I can grow with full elasticity on my application and not have to worry about that stuff, running a data center, worrying about physical security. I mean, there's two sides of the coin. One is, one popular use case for running a cloud internally is when you've got a large organization, you've got multiple departments. So CERN, for example, runs OpenStack. And the reason they do it, and NSA runs it as well. No, they don't. Rumor has it. They'll never admit it. But you have multiple departments who want to get instances there. You got scientists who want to run computational stuff, and they just need machines. So they use the multi-tenant aspect of it to be able to build back to those departments to get servers. And before that was a big requisition and it was a big song and dance. Now they just go into a dashboard, bang, say fire me up 5 servers, and they start playing. But the other side of it, though, is the application developer who wants to have that auto scaling, right? So when they have bursty, what you call bursty computations, so big workload comes in, fire up 10 different machines. TopLog is a classic example of that, right? Fire up a whole bunch of nodes, get the work done, and then tear them down, right? So I mean, when people do data centers, they're not. So Rackspace, for example, doesn't care about how many CPUs they have or how much memory they have or anything like that. They're worried about wattage. That's all it is. It's what's the wattage of a data center. Doesn't matter what, SSDs or any of the rest of that stuff. It's how much power is it consuming. So the same thing if you're running that internally. That's what hardware becomes at that point. It just becomes a power drain.
It's a heat sink.
That's all it is. Yeah. So those are the two classic use cases. One is the multi-tenant aspect of it, and then the other is the auto-scaling side of it. Rackspace sort of mimics. Not Rackspace, I'm sorry. OpenStack sort of mimics its auto-scaling. There's a product called Heat, which is a component of OpenStack, and it sort of mimics it off the Amazon one. The API is even similar, and the templating model is very similar. And that's what a lot of people use for that. So you create some heat rules, and then it just collects metrics from all the different machines, and when it sees a CPU goes above a certain amount, it just fires up more instances and tears them down automatically. So
I think we see a lot on Cloud A. We get to sort of see what people are doing sometimes, and by and large, they're using OpenStack as if it was VMware.
That's right.
Yeah. And I'm surprised because I would think that if people are going to leverage a tool like that and its capability, you would start to re-architect things to take advantage of some of those key attributes. But it just seems like the developer community, at least the one that we're attracting, it's not like the guys that are going to Amazon. Like we used to do a lot of Amazon work before, and we were really paying attention to, how can we maximize the efficiency of those resources for ourselves and our customers. And I'm looking forward to the day when people understand the power of OpenStack in the developer community and what it can actually do. Because I think that's still a gap.
Yeah, so that does get into another aspect of it too, which we're talking about OpenStack, but there's a lot of different options, right? So we're talking about infrastructure as a service, right? So hardware and disk and networks and all that sort of core stuff. The other side of it though is platform as a service, and if all you're concerned about is auto scaling of your application, there's a lot of other ways to skin that cat, right? You can go with Heroku, you can go with App Engine. There's a bunch of different machines engineered. There's a whole bunch of them out there that do that sort of thing. Redshift, I think, is Red Hat's one. Sorry,
that's a terrible one.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that, but there's a ton of them out there, right? The thing that everyone gets confused with cloud is that they think that because I'm running in the cloud, I get auto scaling for free. So I turn the knob and everything just gets bigger. Yeah, and that's not true, right? You've got to write your application to auto scale to do that sort of stuff. Yeah, architecting your application. We could have a whole conversation just around that, just architect for the cloud. And I just went through it with the application I'm working on now, and it's all about building it for that elasticity and that redundancy, but without having to paint yourself into a corner with the solution. So infrastructure as a service, IaaS, platform as a service, PaaS, you'll see those tossed around a lot. there's a cost involved. I mean, there's a great advantage. If you want to get to production quickly and you want to be able to scale, and you think you're going to get, on the front page of Reddit or on Product Hunt, then yes, use an auto-scaling technology, get out there and just be able to ship your product.
But your price per clock is way higher.
Yeah, and if it changes, then you're done, right? They decide to jack something up, or the Canadian exchange changes again, right?
Every minute you're online, that's all.
Yeah, well, I mean, just consider this, the 30% difference that just happened.
Yeah, that's right.
Canadian to US dollars, right? Cloud A is a great, option then, right?
You guys just magically.
It's easy for us to market.
Yeah, we're
30% discount.
30% discount right off the bat, right? That's the freedom that you get from being able to
Sure.
move that stuff
If you have
around.
a properly designed stack, which
Yeah.
is adequately versatile.
I do have a question around that though, 'cause with OpenStack, can you actually move between different OpenStack deployers?
Yeah, that's the magic question.
I mean,
So
it seems like you should be able to.
So the answer is no right now.
Yeah.
But it's getting better. So what the foundation, there's a whole hierarchy of the organization. It is a foundation. And the thing that they're working on right now, and they're really trying to get this solved because it is a big issue, is what they're calling RefStack, which is the reference OpenStack. And it denotes all the pieces of it that you have to support, and they have to be API compatible. So Keystone is the entry point to OpenStack. You have had that's your authentication. That gives you a thing called your service catalog, and that tells you where all the endpoints to all your services are out there. So you have to have Keystone, and it has to work in a certain manner. Then beyond that, then you've got Nova, which is your compute node, and that's got to operate in a certain way. The problem with Nova is that the API is very extensible. Every deployer can put all these little extensions and options in. So they're trying to define what's base Nova, what is core, what's the importance of the table stakes, what do you have to have? Then you get into object storage. Some people want to run Ceph, some people want to run Swift, some people want to run, there's all different options for object storage. Is the API compatible across all those? Load balancers, all the rest of it. So that they're trying to define that, and that's going to be a long process. So right now it's buyer beware. Basically.
Well, it always comes up, and I don't mean to knock anything people are saying, but there's always this lock-in fear with some versus other. I'm like, well, you still have that in OpenStack. You can't just we deployed on Canary, which is the Canadian free academic OpenStack deployment. That was our first VM was up there. It's like, this is really cool. Okay, I want to go host this on Rackspace. Oh, crap. I can't just pull this down as a VM box. Well, luckily I got introduced to Puppet, so deploy.
Right.
But to me,
image management is another big thing.
It'd be amazing if my whole infrastructure could move from one to the other at a flick of the switch. But I would love just to take a box down and go, hey, I want to put that on Cloud A today.
Yeah.
They're 30% off.
I think you should manage that like architecture.
Yeah.
If you can use Puppet and Chef and those things to automate, that we've had a lot of people move over from Canary, and the ones that haven't thought about architecting their solution, it's a bunch of work.
Yes.
But if you thought about it ahead of time and you just hit a, literally we had one time go over about an hour.
Oh yeah, no, and that's how we deploy now. But it's the vendor lock-in argument doesn't hold true to me because you still have one.
But from your perspective, what's easier? Architecting your software so it's portable, or waiting for OpenStack to figure out how they're all going to be organized and agree on everything?
Yeah, no, absolutely. You can solve the problem today, right? In the and do it the way that you said, right? Get your automation scripts in place.
Rather
Yeah.
hoping someone else is.
Yeah, assume that you're going to start with a blank image. You're going to start with, a clean distribution of Debian or something, and then you're going to install all your stuff on that. And the other tricky part is how you do your internal networks.
Yeah, I was just about to say, even if you could bring the images over, we're running KVM, for example, so I believe Dare runs KVM as well. And even if you can bring those images over, you upload them, they're great, they're sync compat, you don't have to do any conversions, you're good. You're still talking about network. I don't think they, at least last time I checked, I don't think they run Neutron. They're running over network.
Yeah, networking is the weakest part of OpenStack right now. There's 5 different solutions out there, and they're trying to unify it all because it's a hard problem.
It is, and I mean, some people don't want to deploy Neutron, and they would reason. Right? I mean, we've done it, we run it. It's it's stable for us, but I mean, it's a learning curve.
So I don't know where I am on time, but I guess the biggest thing I can offer is that if anyone is thinking about OpenStack, reach out, ask questions. If you need introductions into the community or you want to know how to get involved, ask me. I can generally steer you in the right direction. So it can save a lot of time. Just trying to navigate that, field of IRC channels and mailing lists.